Welcome, everyone, to the Information's TITV. My name is Akash Pasricha. It is Tuesday, August 5th, and we have got some new earnings from Palantir we are going to get to today. We are also looking ahead to Snap and AMD earnings tonight. We got a big show of guests lined up for you. The CEO of fusion company Helion is coming on the show. We are also talking AI code review with the CEO of Graphite. We got a great story about how advertisers and ad publishers have this love-hate relationship with Google going on right now. And we're going to close out the show by talking about how AI is already affecting investment banking. Now, before we get started, I want to highlight two big stories that we published over the past 24 hours. They are two of the biggest topics that are really dominating the news cycle right now. One is AI funding, and the other is M&A happening in the AI sector. Now, the first story is that Reflection AI is in talk to raise more than $1 billion. The startup was literally only founded last year, but the founders are former Google DeepMind researchers, I should say. So that very much does the trick. If you're wondering what Reflection actually does, the company is looking to develop open source models in the US to compete with China's DeepSeek and France's Mistral. It is, of course, going up against Meta platforms in that space, and so it has its work cut out for them, but $1 billion should get them started and on their feet. The other news that we were first to report is the latest on the Windsurf saga. You might recall that after Google snapped up most of Windsurf's leaders, Cognition, another AI company, bought what was left of Windsurf. Well, now Cognition has offered buyouts to around 200 employees from Windsurf. The employees have until August 10th to decide if they're going to leave. And in a memo, Cognition CEO Scott Wu said, quote, "We don't believe in work-life balance. Building the future of software engineering is a mission we all care so deeply about that we couldn't possibly separate the two." Noted. One more quick headline before we get to our first guest. Linda Yaccarino, the former CEO of X, has taken a job as CEO of a telehealth company called eMed Population Health. The company is focused on the popular GLP-1 drugs for diabetes and obesity. That certainly promises to be a change of pace. And you know what? Linda, this is an open call to you. We want you to come on the show, and we want you to talk about your new gig. That is my open message to Linda Yaccarino. All right, let's get to our first guest, folks. One of the biggest topics in AI has been powering all of the data centers that companies need to house all of their chip and servers. And anytime that you talk about power, you have to talk about carbon footprint. And so that is what our next guest is trying to tackle head on. Helion has become a well-known startup in the arena of fusion power. The company generates energy by fusing two atoms together under intense heat and pressure. The company has raised more than $1 billion to do this from the likes of Lightspeed, SoftBank, and even Sam Altman. And I want to bring on Helion's founder and CEO, David Kirtley, to talk to us about when we can expect fusion to go mainstream. David, thanks for being here. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Akash. Thanks for having me here. Today we're talking about Orion. That's our first fusion power plant. So earlier this year, we actually began construction of that power plant to get fusion power on the grid.
So I want to get to Orion in a second here. Let's just backtrack for a minute. I mean, you're in the business of clean energy. You could have decided on anything, really. You could have done geothermal, you could have done wind and solar, you could have even done biofuels. I mean, why did you decide to focus on fusion?
Yeah, fusion is what powers the universe. It's what powers stars. It's the physical process that most energy that we use that generates that energy. But we don't really use that on Earth to make electrons yet, anyway. And so when the founders got into fusion and founded Helion Energy, our goal was not to just demonstrate that you can do fusion. Lots of folks are doing that, but actually do fusion to build the commercial product, to build generators that make electricity. And it changes the whole way that you do fusion if your goal is to get electrons on the grid absolutely as soon as possible.
And why is fusion better than some of those other clean energy alternatives that I mentioned?
Yeah, so fundamentally in fusion, you're taking the most common elements in the universe, hydrogens and heliums, and then under intense pressure, our sixth generation machine got over 100 million degrees. You fuse those atoms together, they form heavier elements and release a tremendous amount of energy, but they do it without carbon. They can't melt down like nuclear power can. And if you can do it right and you have the design from the forefront, we believe you can do it very low cost, lower cost than any other power source.
So it's lower cost. Tell us about, when you will actually start delivering this power to customers.
Yeah, we've now built 7 machines, including our latest generation, which we call Polaris, that do fusion. And they're all in service of that power on the grid. We signed a deal a couple of years ago now with Microsoft, a PPA, a power purchase agreement, to deliver 50 megawatts to the grid in Washington state to power one of their data centers. And that's the work we're doing right now, actually pouring concrete of that facility today.
And that's the facility you just broke ground on a couple days ago, right?
Yeah, that's the Orion facility, what we believe will be the world's first fusion power plant. And so we're now pouring concrete. I actually have the second building is going in right now, and beginning the construction of that facility. That will be a 50 megawatt scale facility, the first prototype power plant for that Microsoft data center.
I want to get your help in sort of putting 50 megawatts into context.
Mhm.
I mean, we hear about these massive data centers that all these big tech companies are building. Where does 50 megawatts sit compared to some of the other facilities that we've seen being constructed?
Yeah, it'll be the first fusion power plant and the first fusion power on the grid, but it's still small compared to where we need to go. And so when we founded Helion, our goal was to build fusion in a way that is scalable, globally scalable to massive scale. I think it's pretty interesting that now when we talk about data centers, we don't talk about the amount of compute they have. We
Mm,
talk about the power use they have.
right.
New 4 to 5 gigawatt scale facilities are coming online, and they need power. And so our goal at Helion, in fact, where I am right now in Everett, Washington, is to have factories that build fusion generators so they can be deployed anywhere in the world.
And so, I mean, this kind of leads me to my next question. I mean, 50 megawatts, it's big, but as you mentioned, it's still, it's still relatively small in the grand scheme of things. Still the first fusion power plant, like you said. But how long is it going to be before fusion can really start to make a dent in these massive energy demands that AI is requiring right now?
Yeah, so 50 megawatts is that first step. We also have a development agreement with Nucor, a big steel company, for 500 megawatts. And so we're now beginning the work on investing in manufacturing to be able to build that scale of power. But still, we're talking about now gigawatt scale data centers. And so the only way to get that is investing in the manufacturing so that you can mass produce these systems. So today, right now, we have conveyor belts that are building the subcomponents for fusion, capacitors, electronic assemblies, big
Hmm.
high power magnets. And so we build those right now here in the United States. And we're investing now. Earlier this year, we raised a new fund to invest in manufacturing to turn up our capacitor development, one of the key electronic components, by 50x over the next year. So that we can rise to meet this goal. Eventually, where we want to be as soon as possible is not building one Orion power plant, but in fact, building generators, a generator a day off the assembly line is what I've tasked the company with building the manufacturing to support.
A generator a day. And so, again, like, a company like Microsoft, I mean, how many
Mm.
generators would you be producing for a company like Microsoft, just to put that into context?
Yeah, our goal now is thousands of these generators.
Okay.
So a generator a day is now hundreds of generators a year per facility. And so it's a massive undertaking to scale up the manufacturing to be able to meet those needs. The customers are there, clearly, not just AI data centers, but we started this journey even before the new increase in pressure on the grid and those power needs.
Right.
And so clean baseload carbon-free power has an enormous customer base. And so now it's a question of how fast can we build to meet that, and build now having a trucks of generators coming out of the assembly line.
Well, and that was one of my questions for you was, AI or not, you've talked about this power purchasing agreement with Microsoft. It's slated to start in 2028. It'll ramp up over the course of that year and the year after. But I mean, 3-4 years is a long time away. And so you could totally see, the AI hype fading over that time.
Mm. Mhm.
But, you've been at this since, I think, 2013 is when you founded the company. And so, what other customers are you talking to right now, other than big tech companies, other than those who are looking to power their AI operations?
Yeah, so we started working with Microsoft in 2015 before the AI power boom happened, and the world needed fusion then, just like it needs it now: clean, safe, always on baseload power. And so the customer base is pretty large, is huge. So 50 megawatts with Microsoft so far. We have a 500 megawatt development agreement with Nucor, large steel manufacturer, which has clean, low carbon steel manufacturing and recycling. But they need power to be able to power that. And so those are our first two customers, and that scales from the 50 to the 500. And our goal is to invest in that manufacturing to go meet the rest of that need. But honestly, you can look at the power needs throughout the world, and we're just talking about large industry in the United States, but there's other places all over the world that need this clean, always on baseload power.
Do you think your next customer, what sector do you think it'll be, and who are you talking to other than Microsoft and Nucor?
I mean, our focus now is how do we invest in that manufacturing to meet that customer need. And so I don't have any new
Right,
customers to announce
right,
today,
right.
but we certainly are pushing to be able to meet those needs. And so we point to what's really exciting about Orion, this first fusion power plant, is that it's actually plugged into the grid. So we're working really closely with the public utilities there. In fact, we're leasing the land that we're building the generator from the utility themselves.
Hmm.
And so that close working relationship means that we can go into is paving the way for us to go into all utilities.
Last question for you before I let you go.
Yeah.
You talked about 2028 as being the start of that power purchasing agreement with Microsoft and when Orion will
Mhm.
finally come online. Just very quickly walk us through what needs to get done, year one, year two, year three, between now and 2028. Is there licensing involved from the government? Are you trying to have all the machines up and working so it can test by year two? Like, what is the Gantt chart, timeline for the next 2.5 years?
Yeah, getting a power plant online in 3 years is really tough and takes a lot of work. So much so that we've already started. So the licensing and the permitting work of this started with the federal government many years ago, but also even working with the state regulatory agencies and permitting agencies to be able be able to even go and break ground and begin construction. And so some of the key things that we're working on over the next 3 years. I mean, the big one was the environmental permit. So this is the first time a fusion power plant has ever been licensed.
Right, right.
We're really proud of that we paved the way to very quickly get what's called a SEPA permit, that is the main environmental permit for these facilities, and do it in a way that's cleaner and safer than many other power technologies. So that's a big one. But on the way, we continue to work with, as we've done with all of our our previous fusion systems, we continue to work with the licensing and the Department of Health and Department of Ecology in Washington State to license these. And that's on that permit side. And so that work started years ago and will continue over the next 3 years, working with the local community, making sure the community wants fusion. That's also just as critical. And the hardware. You
And
have to
so
build a lot of hardware.
how long will it take to get, this hardware set up for Microsoft to start testing for them before 2028?
Yeah, we've already started work on that hardware right now. We're prototyping it in our facilities on the conveyor belts and the mass assembly lines that we have here in Everett, and building that hardware today, building the subcomponents, the capacitors, the power electronics. And so our goal now is to be ramping up over the next year and a half, that manufacturing, so then we can turn on the full production, build the subassemblies here at our manufacturing in Everett, Washington, right outside of the big Boeing manufacturing plants, and then put them on trucks, deliver them to Malaga, Washington, where the Orion facility is, and then install them. And so, and continue the manufacturing at that point to go on to support Nucor and all the other customers that are coming online.
Well, look, it's a long journey, and I know you've been at it for a long time. So thank you, David, for coming on and giving us a glimpse into what is going on at Helion. That is David Kirtley, the CEO of Helion Energy. Palantir reported earnings last night. It might be the single hottest software company in the market right now. Shares have grown more than sixfold this year. This time last year, its market cap was around $70 billion. It is now worth more than $400 billion. And I want to bring on Jefferies analyst Brent Thill to break down the numbers for us. Brent, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here on TITV.
Thanks for having me.
So, what stood out to you about Palantir's earnings last night? Let's go there.
We've never seen anything like this. I've covered software for 30 years. I mean, to have a company put up 45% growth and a mid 40% margin is unheard of. So a rule of 90, we talk about a rule of 40, right, in the industry. And the numbers are incredible. And then this morning, Dr. Karp, on the CEO of Palantir, mentioned that he anticipates that they actually grew headcount this quarter, but they will shrink the headcount from 4,100 to 3,600 and grow revenues 10x. So if anyone thinks AI is not coming for your job, you better look at what's happening. Microsoft flat headcount, Meta put up, insane numbers off of decelerating heads from 3 years ago. I mean, what's happening in the industry right now is pretty remarkable. And so I just say that if he can hold to that forecast, I mean, that just tells you what is happening with AI. And I think it's a real wake up call for every software CEO that's out there. So the numbers were phenomenal. It's just really hard to think about now. The combined market cap of Adobe and Salesforce is less than Palantir.
Right. Let's talk about the forecast. I mean, what did the company forecast in terms of sales and profitability going forward?
Yeah, I mean, they've had 4 straight quarters of accelerating growth, and they do expect growth to decelerate. But again, albeit we still think that they're going to put up, 40 to 50% growth going forward. So I think their forecasts have obviously been too conservative. They've been blowing through numbers. I think the real question is, can this sustainably be a 50% growth company for the next 4 years? That's going to be required. Because at the end of 4 years, right now it trades at 75 times revenue. We've never seen a revenue multiple sustain like this in software, right? Snowflake went to 50, fell back to single digits. Datadog went there as well, fell back. We saw this in the client server era with Siebel. That we've seen these movies before, right? And they never last in terms of the multiples. But even if they grew at 50% for the next 4 years in a row, they would trade at 25 times revenue, which would still make it the most expensive name in software, 4 years out. So just tells you, kind of we're in a different stratosphere in terms of growth.
I was going to say, is the 75 times, is this meme stock territory? I mean, like, do you think that multiple lasts really?
So if you think about just compare the next 2 closest market multiples. So Cloudflare is at 25 times revenue, and CrowdStrike is around 18 times revenue, and this is 75. Okay, so there's no cities between, there's no pit stop between those names, and so if you think about like the best operating company in security, CrowdStrike, everyone's like George Kurtz, best leader in cybersecurity, like hands down. They'll pay 18 times for that, and that company's growing, 25 to 30% with a big margin. Cloudflare, obviously in a really good spot, protecting the internet, improving the speed of the network, obviously with AI, protecting all the agents and improving the speed of the agents on the network. That's 25 times. So, I mean, you're talking about a 15 multiple point differential to get to Palantir, and the growth rates are not that different, right? I mean, we're talking, can 30 to 45, 50%. I mean, the gap isn't that big. So again, I think kudos to Palantir. Like, to answer your question, yes, it's in a completely different stratosphere. We've never seen it. We can't compare it to anything. I think the hard thing for any of us that are fundamental analysts is we've all been bitten by this. I mean, investors were bitten on Snowflake at 50 times revenue, thinking that it was the new norm, and it went back to like 7 times revenue.
Right, and
50 to 7 is a big compression in the stock.
And I think that
we just don't have any. There's no comparison.
No, and I think that's sort of what I'm trying to sort of triangulate for myself is how defensible is this moat that they've built? What is the moat even at all?
The moat for Palantir is really the technology works. It's a combination of infrastructure and applications blended together. And as Dr. Karp has said, they don't even have a sales team really. This is product-led and customer-led, that when XYZ oil and gas company or financial services company has an ROI, they talk to other customers. The customers come to Palantir and say, we need it. It's not, he doesn't believe in the steak dinners and golf. That's not his thing. He has said, and I think we've all said, what if he had a really good head of sales? Remember Oracle with Ray Lane. Remember the best companies in the industry. You even look at what Cloudflare did with their new head of sales coming out of Palo Alto. I mean, you look at what they could do if they really had a great go-to-market team. They could even grow faster. He's choosing not to do that. He's choosing to, I don't want to deal with any reservation at any high-end steakhouse or any golf club. We are delivering this in our product.
So as far as we know, it's inbound interest for the company right now.
It's inbound. It's led by other companies having the ROI, and we spoke to a lot of these customers that are seeing that ROI. So this isn't hocus pocus. It's not like slideware. This stuff's real. And what they've done is they've really truly blended the application world and the infrastructure world together. And not many in AI have done that.
Right.
So,
last question before we let you go. They have the commercial business and they have the government business. Which of these two businesses are you more focused on right now for the company going forward?
Commercial for sure. And so what I'd say is it's growing faster. Second, you can analyze it, right? You can't go talk to the CIA or the Army or any other department of the government, get the ROI case study. You can't forecast it. And so we said this when we did the direct list for Palantir, taking them public. We said like half their business is unanalyzable because you can't really get to those sources. The commercial side is growing fastest and it has the biggest opportunity. And what I would say in my limited government conversations and my friends that work in the government, I would say I'd say they have an incredible opportunity. I think the government's going to increasingly look to them to automate. And you look at what's gone on with Doge and some of the initiatives inside the government to reduce some of the software waste. And Elon Musk has tweeted repeatedly how bad the software is inside the U.S. government.
Right.
There's an upgrade that has to happen. So I think commercial, to answer your question, but government is another engine that is in an incredible perspective for where they're at. They're not alone. There are other companies that are going after this market. You can piece it together with Databricks or Snowflake and other custom built interfaces. But Palantir has done a really, really great job, and it's kind of shocked, I think, a lot of us that have watched the industry for a while.
Well, look, I want to thank you, Brent, for coming on and helping us make sense of it. It was a pretty stunning quarter, and like you said, the question is, how long can this go on? That is Brent Thill from Jefferies. Thank you for coming on and helping us understand all that is going on with Palantir. AI coding tools have been getting a lot of attention lately, but the other half of generating code is being able to review it. And that has been a space that many different startups have started to focus on, including Graphite. The company has raised money from Excel, Menlo Ventures, and Andreessen Horowitz. And I want to bring on the co-founder and CEO of the company, Merrill Lutsky, to talk about his business. Merrill, welcome to TITV. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, look, AI code review, I think I know what it is, but tell us what the product does very quickly before we get into the business.
Yeah, so Graphite is building the code review platform for the age of AI. What we mean by that is, as you said, so much of the attention in AI so far in software development has been on how can we use LLMs to generate more code. You have amazing tools like Cursor and Claude Code now that help engineers write code and build features faster than ever. But anyone who's worked in the software team, building in a professional software context, knows that that's only the first part of the story. You still need to then get that code reviewed. You need to have it tested. You need to deploy it to production, and all of that. We call that the outer loop. The inner loop is kind of where you're working locally. You're writing the code. You're building the features. That outer loop is where all of the collaboration, iteration, and refinement happens. And even before AI was good, it was good at generating code. That often becomes the bottleneck at enterprise scale when you have thousands of engineers trying to work concurrently. And now with AI, that problem has just become 10 times worse because you have every engineer has 10 Claude Code agents open and they're able to generate so much more code. But now you're just seeing teams that are getting stuck with with a huge pile of TRs that need to be reviewed, and they aren't able to get the most out of these tools. And that's what we're solving. Is we think it's not enough to just apply AI to generating code. You also need agents that help you review faster, that help you merge all this code and deploy it. And that's what Graphite is a platform that that helps you solve and move code as efficiently as possible through that outer loop with AI.
So the thing that I'm so curious about with your business is, we have all these AI coding companies, and then we have these code review companies. I mean, isn't code review something that could just easily be tacked on for any of these AI coding companies? I mean, why do you have to have a business around code review on its own?
It's a great question, and I think that it really comes down to the way that software is built and how collaboration works. Where what we're seeing now, I think there a lot of these companies are making some effort here. So you see Cursor building BugBot, you see Claude Code having a review tool now, and I think those are great, and it's very fun to see those companies recognizing that the outer loop is the bottleneck and providing a solution there as well. But I think if you look at the way code is generated, as long as there are many of these different agents within a company that are generating code, it still all needs to come together on one platform, and that's always been the way that it works. Every engineer has had their own IDE, they've had their own local development setup, and really, code review is the first moment in the development cycle where everyone has to be on the same platform, and you have to support each source of code equally, and that is our belief with code review is that. It's not, unless Cursor or Claude owns 100% of the code that's being generated within a company,
Right.
that's not the right surface for review to happen. It needs to be a third party. The other part of that is you probably don't want the fox watching the hen house here. If you're using the exact same models to generate code and review it, you probably are not going to get as much coverage as if you have a company that's focused entirely on the review side of it.
So having a third
building
party,
review.
right? So having a third party kind of makes sense there. Okay, so I see
Exactly.
that I see that point. I want to get your take on, as a code review specialist, you review code from all these different companies, and there's so many out there. You talked about them: Claude, GitHub, ChatGPT, Windsurf, Cursor. So, well, first of all, which one is your favorite? I want to start there.
Claude Code is the one that we're seeing get a lot of traction. That's what I've been using a lot recently. It's what our team loves.
And but as you look at the landscape, you like Claude, but
Yep.
are some better for different tasks? I mean, how do you sort of segment all these tools that are out there for coding tools?
Yeah, I think you can look at it. You can kind of cut it up by what they believe the modality of interaction is and where the code is being generated. So I'd say on one side you have tools like Cursor that believe that the IDE is the place where code generation is happening, and
the IDE stands for
integrated development environment.
Okay.
So it's like a tool like VS Code. Cursor is an example of one. It's a tool it's an interface that's designed for writing code. It lets you view all the files in your project, and has nice things like syntax highlighting,
Right.
plugins, language, everything else that helps engineers understand and quickly iterate on their code. That's how we've developed for really the past 20 years has been working in IDEs. And Cursor, I think, did something. I think they got it right in terms of how do we meet developers where they are and introduce AI in the surface that they're most familiar with. So Cursor initially captured that side of it. I think then you've had another modality, which is prompting through just giving an agent a prompt and letting it come back to you with a change, and that's more of what Claude Code is, and some of these others. And then I'd say the other axis is is it IDE or prompt or command line. The other axis I'd say is the code generation happening locally, or is it happening on remote compute? So for Cursor, for their initial product, and for Claude Code, it's still all happening on your laptop. Versus for some of these tools like Codex and Cognition, Devon is another example. It's happening on remote compute. It happens in the cloud, and then you just get handed back a pull request.
Got it.
And that's, so those are sort of the two, I guess that you can kind of draw your grid of how to think about this. And what we're seeing, I think we're seeing, like, you walk along that grid kind of in that order, where you started with, AI IDEs. Now we're seeing a move to these like prompt or command line driven tools like Claude Code. And then I think the next step, it's easy to then take the compute and say, we're going to, instead of running that locally, that's all going to happen remotely. Cursor is recognizing this, I think, with their background agents launch. We're seeing a lot more interest in what that modality looks like. And I think that world is, that's the world that we're building towards. And I think one that's very exciting for us, because in that world, if agents are generating all of the code remotely, all of a sudden, then the pull request becomes like the most important surface for like iterating on changes and collaborating. That is where the engineers are primarily then reviewing code instead of writing it, and Graphite is building the surface where they'll do that.
Right. Very quickly before I let you go, you guys are working with a ton of big customers and a ton of big logos. How much revenue are you guys generating?
We're not publicly stating our revenue numbers, but we've grown 8x in the last 12 months. Had a really significant uptake, especially on the enterprise side. We had our best quarter. Our best quarter ever was this past quarter. So seeing a lot of uptake there. Exciting times for some of our customers, like Figma had the IPO last week. Ramp just had a huge round. Clay this morning announced their new round. So we're really excited about the companies that we power and the things that they're building with Graphite.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, Merrill. It's a fascinating business. And when you are ready to talk about your revenue figures, you could come right back here and you could tell us more about some of the new customers you've signed up.
We'll do. We have some exciting launches coming up this fall, and we'll have some big milestones to share along with that.
Great. Well, that is Merrill Lutsky, the CEO of code review company Graphite. Okay. If you're an advertiser right now, or you're a business that sells ads, you might have grown frustrated with Google lately. My colleague Kathy Perloff wrote about exactly that issue in her story today, but she found an interesting twist that even though these two groups are frustrated with Google, they're still spending more on Google search ads. To explain why that's happening, I want to bring Kathy on the show to talk about her reporting. Kathy, welcome to the show. It's your first time.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you in this setting.
TITV.
Office. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. So, look, we're talking Google search ads, we're talking advertisers, we're talking publishers. You're going to tell us what that is, but talk to me about what got you hooked on this story in the first place.
I think the big picture thing is like Google's search ad revenue keeps growing despite Google's market share. In search declining for the first time in a while. It declined below 90% late last year, according to some stat counter data. I think so that, why is it growing? Typically advertisers like to follow where the eyeballs are. That's the general mantra of the industry. The other thing that I think made me interested was I was talking with an executive in advertising who kind of introduced me to this idea of navigational searches. And what that means is, people using Google more like just to get to, one website or another, not really to like actually start discovering information or start their product discovery journey. And how AI might sort of change that user behavior with searching. And that's sort of, I think, both sort of like why is ad revenue growing for Google and like how is user behaviors in searching affecting ad revenue kind of got me interested in that topic.
And so what did you find in your reporting?
So there's two interesting ways that advertisers are finding Google annoying, but they still are buying more ads, which is one, both advertisers and publishers, there's sort of industry jargon for like anyone who makes media like news or whatever, are getting less traffic from Google in the past year. There's a lot of, Google sort of disputes that it's because they're putting AI overviews at the top of search results. They say there's a lot of reasons why traffic will be down for people that are kind of idiosyncratic, but brands that have websites are getting less traffic and they want people to still come to their websites, maybe to buy a product on their website or just to learn about their company. And so they have to buy more search ads to get the same amount of, people to their website, as that traffic declines.
So basically, they're seeing less organic traction, than to make up for
Exactly.
it, they're like, "Oh, I got to pay to get the traction that I was missing out on."
Exactly, which is kind of frustrating. The other dynamic, which is a little more nuanced but super interesting, is so one advertiser I just spoke to, he buys ads on behalf of a very expensive skin cream, and those ads were appearing next to more like drugstore skincare brands, not the sort of upmarket environment that he wanted his ads to appear in. And the hypothesis there is that more consumers are starting their search on ChatGPT or TikTok. And so by the time they get to Google, they already know what product they want. And so maybe they're just searching L'Oreal skin cream or something. And so there's less opportunities for advertisers to appear next to these sort of broader, more nuanced or complicated searches if people are using Google more just to kind of navigate to the product they want to buy. Now, Google disputes this, and I think there's also an underlying variable of there's Google has AI overviews that may or may not have as many ads right now as regular search, and that's sort of a nuance there. But I think the thing that advertisers who I speak to are noticing is like our ads are not appearing in the environments we want them to, but which is more expensive actually if you're going to target people who aren't right for your product. But right now, ChatGPT doesn't have ads, and so there aren't that many other good places to go. So they're still buying these ads even if they find Google isn't working as well for them.
Talk about the antitrust angle to this story.
Well, Google is kind of according to what a judge ruled last year, they have a monopoly in search. And right now, a judge, and they're supposed to issue remedies later this month, is going to decide what to do about that. And some of those remedies could include sharing data with their with search rivals, which could include ChatGPT. That also, the most extreme remedy would be spinning out the Chrome browser, which gives Google a huge distribution advantage of, everyone who uses Chrome kind of automatically uses Google search. There's also other remedies about ending their distribution deals with the likes of Apple, and other phone providers to make, Google search the default on mobile phones. And all of, these are all remedies proposed by the Department of Justice, and the judge still has to adjudicate what the best solution is. But if, the Department of Justice gets their way on any of these, this will make it, easier for Google's rivals to have some of the advantages that Google has had in the search advertising market. So whether that's DuckDuckGo or ChatGPT, once it maybe does introduce ads, I guess, we don't know if it will, but they probably will. Then they'll start to have some of those competitive advantages that Google has sort of had a lock on for a while.
And so bring it back to your story. I mean, how would that affect then, the way that publishers and advertisers feel about their frustrations with Google?
Theoretically, they're like, okay, well, Google isn't working as well for me. I can bring my money elsewhere.
Right.
And now it's hard for them to do that. Google might respond. Google's really good at this, though. So this doesn't mean that will happen. Obviously, they might figure out a solution to keep advertiser money and keep advertisers happy. Even if they're complaining now, maybe it'll get better and whatever. But it definitely is a threat.
Right. Well, look, Kathy, I want to thank you for coming on the show to talk about it. It's like you said, it's kind of this love-hate relationship, and I think the story is really just beginning. And the thing that I'm really excited about is all the data that is coming out about traffic that websites are getting through Google, and the success of advertisements on Google. I mean, there's so many different data providers coming out and collecting this data. And so once we collect more of that, we'll have you back on the show, and you can tell us a little bit more about how this love-hate relationship is evolving. That is Kathy Perloff, our advertising reporter. Okay, for our last segment, we have heard a lot about the M&A happening in the AI sector, but what you might not have thought about is how AI stands to affect the business of M&A. My colleague Aaron Holmes wrote a column this morning in our Applied AI newsletter about how chatbots are transforming the business of investment banking, and I want to bring him on to talk about it. Aaron, welcome back on the show. This is what, your third time? I think you're in the lead here, actually.
Becoming a regular. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, normally you cover Microsoft. Today, you were writing in our Applied AI newsletter. Tell us about what you found.
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm hearing is that M&A advisors who basically work for companies that are looking to find a buyer are finding that ChatGPT can basically cut hours or even days out of the process of rounding up the list of buyers, essentially by augmenting the research process. So, if I am an M&A advisor who's been hired by a firm looking for a buyer, I can basically feed a bunch of proprietary data from my firm as well as other data providers like Brada or PitchBook directly into ChatGPT, ask it for a list of active buyers in the same geography and industry, and they're finding that it can produce that list basically as effectively or more effectively than a junior analyst would have been able to, but much faster. So basically, it's starting to take over some of that work that previously would have gone to more entry level roles.
And are there specific firms that are working with these tools more than others right now?
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm hearing is that this is the most useful for advisories that work in the smaller market. If I am an advisor at a big bank who's been hired to find a $25 billion buyer for CyberArk, I probably don't need ChatGPT to tell me that Palo Alto Networks is a leading contender. But if you're working more in the $5 million to $50 million earnings range, there's a much longer tail of potential buyers out there. And so that universe of who could be acquiring your asset is a lot larger, and automating the research process to find those buyers becomes a lot more useful.
And is this changing anything about the hiring or, the number of employees that banks are taking on at all?
I have spoken to somebody who works at one of these advisories recently, and he said that he's not, changing anything about hiring yet, but that this is essentially letting his staff do more with less, which often feels like a precursor to hiring fewer people, especially in junior entry level roles. So I think that's kind of a theme that we're seeing across the business use cases for AI, is that this is starting to pick up work that previously would have gone to someone early in their career. And I'm hearing that senior bankers, love this type of tool because they don't have as many junior bankers knocking on their office door asking for their input on potential buyer lists, and that it speeds up the process in general. But I could see this being concerning for those junior bankers looking for their first job.
Did you at all hear about junior bankers who were actually possibly celebrating the fact that, hey, if they're not hiring less right now, my job just got easier. I don't have to be in the office until 10 p.m. at night putting these lists together. I mean, was there any sort of exuberance from these analysts?
I haven't spoken to anyone who would admit that outright, but I do think that most people who have found that they figured out how to automate parts of their job are happy to be able to do that. And I think also a lot of junior bankers who currently are already employed feel like they got the last chopper out of war zone, and then it's going to be a lot harder to get an entry level job in banking when more of this work gets automated.
Right. Well, look, it's a fascinating way for that AI is changing employment, and in the financial sector, no less. Thank you, Aaron, for coming on the show. And next time we'll have you on to talk about how AI is automating PowerPoint. That's the next thing that I want to get your take on.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that does it for today's show. A reminder that we are live on this stream Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank Amazon Web Services, who is our presenting sponsor for this production. And I want to thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate your viewership. I am already excited for our next show tomorrow. And so until then, I will see you tomorrow, Silicon Valley.